I raise my glass once more, the flicker of candlelight catching the deep ruby surface of the Cabernet swirling inside. Laughter drifts around the dining room, soft and practiced, the kind of family mirth that feels rehearsed more than real. For a brief second, I allow myself to believe the celebration is truly for me. For my promotion at Westbrook Design, the one milestone I earned entirely on my own. But the illusion splinters the moment I hear my name, carried faintly from the hallway outside the dining room. Through the partially open door of my father's study, Daniel's voice slices the air. She finally has enough money to help save our family legacy. The words hit me with the force of a blow I never saw coming. The wine glass trembles in my hand, stem slippery against my fingers. Daniel's tone is confident, smug, as if the decision has already been made. I barely manage to catch my breath before my father's deeper voice follows. Let's not rush this. Claire has always been cautious with her finances. My mother, Maggie, chimes in smoothly, her words carrying the cadence of someone who's been rehearsing this very line. We've been discussing this for weeks. The vineyard needs that investment now, not when she's ready. The glass slips from my grasp before I can stop it. Crystal shatters against the hardwood floor, the sharp crack echoing through the room like a gunshot. Red wine splashes violently across my cream slacks, pooling into the centuries-old oak planks beneath the dining table, the very wood my great-grandfather Richard Matthews once laid with his own calloused hands. The sight sears into me. Our vineyard's signature vintage, wasted, bleeding into the floorboards like a wound, and I stand frozen, the pieces of glass glittering like accusations at my feet. And in that instant the truth comes crashing down. This dinner wasn't about honoring my promotion. It was never about me. It was a carefully staged prelude, a softening of the ground before the real ask, or rather, the real expectation. $100,000. The exact figure I had spent 6 years of meticulous saving to reach. Every late night, every weekend project, every sacrifice had been for one dream. My future cabin near Yosemite, a place untouched by the constant demands of family obligation. My hands tremble as I bend to collect the jagged shards. A sharp edge bites into my finger, the pain almost welcome, something tangible to ground me while my mind reels. The sting barely registers against the larger wound unraveling inside. My memory betrays me, dragging me back years to when I was 12. I can still see Daniel walking beside Dad into the fermentation room, while I trailed behind with my notebook clutched tightly to my chest. Claire, Dad had called over his shoulder, his voice firm, dismissive. Your mother needs help in the kitchen. This is men's work. The words had slammed the door shut on my curiosity. I remember standing at the window, nose pressed to the glass, watching while Daniel fumbled with the grapes, asking clumsy questions while Dad, Richard, beamed with pride. That same evening, Daniel's C- in science was rewarded with ice cream at the diner, a celebration loud and joyous. Meanwhile, my academic award certificate, earned with long nights bent over textbooks, was taped crookedly to the refrigerator, unremarked, already curling at the corners. That memory burns like acid in my chest as I rise, leaving the broken glass behind me. My legs steady themselves with every step toward the study door. By the time I push it open, my hands are no longer shaking. Inside, 3 heads snap toward me. Father, Mother, Daniel. The air stiffens, the silence stretched taut, a web ready to ensnare me. What were you just saying about my finances? My voice sounds steadier than I feel. Maggie recovers first, her smile slipping into place as though it never faltered. We're just proud of how well you're doing, dear. That promotion is quite an achievement. I study their faces. For once, the familiar current of anxiety that usually churns inside me is still. The old fear of disapproval, of exile, of never being enough, quietly recedes. In its place rises something I barely recognize. Clarity. I know exactly what you were planning, I say slowly, deliberately. You've been discussing how to get my money for weeks. For Daniel's tasting room. Her smile wavers. Dad shifts, the old oak chair creaking under his weight as he straightens, his tone firm, rehearsed like a sermon. Your brother has put his whole life into this vineyard, Claire. The Matthews name means something in this valley because of his dedication. Daniel leans casually against the mahogany desk, arms crossed over his chest, every inch the favored son. This isn't just about me. It's about our family legacy. The tasting room expansion could double our revenue. I calculate quickly, almost mechanically. 6 years of saving, every dollar guarded like treasure. 6 years of skipped vacations, of grinding through overtime, of declining luxuries, all for the vision of a cabin by the mountains where I could finally breathe. 6 years of independence now threatened to be swallowed whole by Daniel's entitlement. That money is for my cabin, I say firmly. My investment in my future. Maggie's lips tighten into a thin, severe line. So you'd put a vacation home above family? It's not a vacation home. I correct her, my voice sharp-edged. It's my future. And this isn't about family. It's about bailing out Daniel. Again. My father's face reddens, heat rising in his cheeks, eyes narrowing as though I'd committed sacrilege. You've always been selfish, Claire. Always thinking about yourself instead of what this family has given you. His words hang between us like a sentence. What this family has given me. The recognition that always came with conditions. The support always rationed, always tilted toward Daniel. Love that felt transactional. Never free did I take a breath, my spine straightening as though anchored by something deeper than their approval. I'm not giving you my money, I say. The words are simple, but they reverberate in the still air. Not 1 cent. Daniel pushes off from the desk, his jaw tightening, his eyes cold. Then maybe you shouldn't consider yourself part of this family's future. The threat lands precisely where it's meant to: exile, the specter of exclusion. For 30 years, the fear of being cut off has been the chain binding me to their will. For 30 years, I've bent, yielded, swallowed my anger, all in hopes of earning the effortless approval Daniel collects by merely existing. But as I stand there, in the study that always smelled faintly of oak and smoke and power, something shifts. The cost of belonging has finally risen too high. I guess we'll see about that, I reply. My voice is even unshaken. Without another glance, I turn toward the door. Behind me, I hear Maggie's sharp inhale, Dad's muttered curse, Daniel's silence. But for the first time in my life, I don't look back to measure their disappointment. I don't twist myself into apology. I don't bargain for their love, that I just keep walking. The next morning, I sit at my small apartment desk, still replaying last night's confrontation in my head, when my email notification pings. The subject line sears into me like acid. Regarding strategies to secure Claire's contribution. My stomach flips violently. With shaking hands, I click it open. The email is from Richard, my father, addressed to Paul, the family's financial advisor. He must have accidentally copied me when forwarding it. The words unspool across the screen, cold and transactional, as if I were nothing more than a number on a spreadsheet. Paul, we need to present this as an opportunity, not a request. Claire has always been cautious with her money, too cautious if you ask me. This promotion puts her in a position where she can finally contribute to the family legacy. We're thinking $100,000 for a 10% stake. My chest constricts. Not only had they plotted to take my savings, but they intended to dress it up as an opportunity I should be grateful for. Scrolling further, I see Maggie's reply. Remember to emphasize the family aspect. She's always wanted to be included. A bitter laugh escapes my lips. Wanted to be included? The Vineyard was never mine to be included in. Not when I was 12, not when I was 18, not ever. And then Daniel's addition, the final blow. Let's call it Daniel's tasting room in the official paperwork. After all, I'm the one who's kept this place going while she's been building her little career. The arrogance oozes from his words. My little career. Westbrook design, the promotion, the years of overtime, the respect I had clawed tooth and nail to earn. All dismissed with a condescending swipe. My hands shake as I scroll through weeks of correspondence, email after email. The pattern is undeniable. They had been planning this ambush for months, waiting for my promotion to make me financially viable. They weren't treating me as a daughter, a sister. I was a resource to be mined. Something in me hardens. I hit print, one by one, feeding each damning message onto crisp sheets of paper. I slide them into a folder, a tangible record of betrayal. Evidence. The following morning, I drive across town and park across from Hartwell & Sons law office. Through the glass storefront, I see them. Richard checking his watch, Maggie smoothing her skirt, Daniel spreading papers across the oak table. Aunt Linda is there too, her posture stiff, hands folded in her lap. The investment documents sit neatly in the center, in front of the one empty chair. Mind that I don't go inside. Instead, I call the office line from my car. This is Claire Matthews. I'll be joining the meeting by phone only. There's a brief pause, then the conference speaker crackles to life. Claire, darling. Maggie coos, her voice strained but practiced. What's this nonsense? Just come inside. I'd prefer to have this conversation with some distance, I say, surprised by how steady my voice sounds. The lawyer, Roger Hartwell, clears his throat. Well, we're here to discuss the investment opportunity in Matthews Family Vineyards. Specifically, the expansion project for Daniel's tasting room. I cut in. Yes, I've seen the emails. A loaded silence follows. The kind that weighs heavy enough to bow the air. Those were private communications, Richard says at last, his voice clipped and tight. About me. Without me. Another pause. Then I press forward. How many other family members have you approached for money? Silence stretches again until Aunt Linda speaks, her voice trembling. They got $50,000 from me last year. For new fermentation equipment. She swallows. The equipment was never purchased. That was different, Daniel interjects quickly. We had unexpected irrigation costs. But this time it's different. The tasting room will transform revenue. Like the wine club transformed it 3 years ago? Aunt Linda asks softly. Or the online store before that? Through the glass, I watch Daniel's face flush crimson. My phone buzzes. New messages flood in. Uncle James. Don't let them pressure you, Claire. Cousin Stephanie. Are you going to do your part for the family legacy? Grandmother Ruth's nurse. Your grandmother hopes you'll consider what family unity means to her at her age. The subtext is sharp, unmistakable. If I refuse, I risk losing Grandmother Ruth, the only family member whose approval ever mattered. She still believes in unity above all else. The thought twists painfully in my chest. Meanwhile, the meeting drones on in the background, voices arguing figures and projections. My mind spins with its own math. 6 years of saving, thousands of hours of overtime. If I gave them what they wanted, I'd need at least 4 more years to rebuild. 4 more years of delay, of sacrifice for Daniel's vanity project. I need to go, I say abruptly, cutting through the noise. I have another meeting. Claire, wait. Maggie begins, but I end the call. Back at Westbrook Design, I bury myself in work, but the weight of family expectation presses against my ribs like a vice. Just before lunch, Elaine stops by my desk. Her sharp eyes peer over stylish frames. You okay? You seem distracted. Family stuff, I manage, forcing a smile. Her gaze falls on the Yosemite cabin listing half hidden under my blueprints. That the property you've been saving for? Yes. But my family wants me to invest in my brother's vineyard instead. Elaine leans against the desk, arms crossed. You know, when I recommended you for this promotion, there were 3 other candidates. You weren't the most senior. But you were the most deserving. She taps my latest proposal with one manicured finger. Your promotion wasn't luck, Claire. It was earned. The words wash over me like a bomb. One small piece of validation in a lifetime of being overlooked. That evening, as I drive home, the cabin listing sits on the passenger seat, the promise of independence nearly within reach. My phone buzzes. 3 more missed calls from Maggie. I grip the steering wheel tighter. The decision looms like a storm. Do I stand firm against decades of favoritism? Or make one more sacrifice for the only family I have? I don't know. Not yet. But for the first time, the possibility of choosing myself doesn't feel selfish. Feels necessary. The next day at work, the notification pings across my phone screen while I'm bent over a set of blueprints. First I ignore it. Deadlines loom, and the Peterson project revisions are demanding all of my focus. But when the buzz comes again, then a third time irritation edges in. I glance down. A string of Facebook alerts lights up the display. Awed with a sigh, I swipe open the app and freeze. The first image that fills the screen is a golden-hued sunset over our vineyard. Rows of vines stretching endlessly toward the mountains. Beneath it sits Daniel's latest post. Family support makes dreams come true. Excited to announce expansion plans for Matthews Vineyard. #family legacy, #vineyard life. My breath catches in my throat. Comments are already pouring in. Cousin Melissa. So proud of you, Daniel, carrying on the Matthews tradition. Aunt Joanne. A good sister always supports her brother. Family first. Uncle Stephen. Can't wait to see the new tasting room with Claire's name on it. My fingers hover over the screen, trembling with the urge to reply, to shout the truth into the digital void. Without my knowledge, without my consent, I've already been cast as the supportive sister bankrolling my brother's dream. They've written me into their narrative without even asking. The humiliation burns. I slam the app closed before I type something I'll regret. The phone rings almost immediately. I answer without checking the caller ID. Claire. Maggie's voice slices through the line, sharp and commanding that I stiffen. I'm at work, Mom. This will only take a moment. Your father and I are hosting a family reunion next weekend at the Vineyard. Daniel will be presenting his expansion vision to everyone. We expect you there, of course. The phrasing isn't a request. It's a summons. I'll have to check my schedule, I reply carefully, though we both know it doesn't matter what conflicts I cite. Family comes first, Claire. Saturday at 4. She hangs up before I can answer. The receiver clicks back into place with a finality that makes my chest constrict. They're escalating, I realize. Moving from private pressure to public spectacle. The reunion isn't about family, it's about cornering me in front of witnesses. Later that afternoon, my phone vibrates again. The screen flashes with a familiar area code, my hometown. My stomach knots instantly. I let it go to voicemail. The same thing happens twice more before the end of the day. Each time the same area code, the same silent dread crawling up my spine. By the third call, my heart races at the mere sound of the ringtone. I shut the phone off entirely, unable to stand it. That night, I finally gather the courage to check my messages. The first voicemail is from my bank. Ms. Matthews, this is Mike Belton. We need to discuss your pre-approval for the Yosemite property. Some concerns have been raised about your financial commitments. Please call me back as soon as possible. The room tilts around me. Concerns? What concerns? The second message clarifies everything. Claire. Uncle James' familiar voice fills the speaker, far too casual. Just had a nice chat with Mike Belton. We go way back to high school. Mentioned you might be overextending yourself with this cabin idea, while the family business needs support. Call me. I sink onto the couch, nausea rising like bile. They're sabotaging my mortgage. My own family, undermining me, whispering in the banker's ear, deliberately planting doubts. For the next hour, I go methodically to work. I screenshot Daniel's Facebook post and every smug comment beneath it. I save Maggie's voicemail and the messages from my bank. I open a new folder on my laptop, labeling it Evidence, and feed it every shred of manipulation. Next, I fire off an email to my mortgage officer, requesting all interactions be conducted in writing and secured with password protection. Then I change the passwords on every financial account I own. Finally, I contact the credit bureaus to place alerts on my credit reports by midnight. My dining table is buried under papers, financial records, property listings, loan documents. I construct a fortress out of order and documentation, each piece a brick against the onslaught. The phone rings again, startling me. The number is unfamiliar. For a moment, I almost ignore it, but something urges me to pick up. Claire, it's Sandra. My real estate agent chirps, her voice bright and full of energy. My grip tightens on the phone. Has something happened with the mortgage? Nothing like that, she says quickly. Actually, I have amazing news. Remember that property in Oakhurst we discussed? The owners just dropped the price by 15%. It's perfect for you. 3 acres, gorgeous mountain views. Only 10 minutes from the park entrance. For the first time in days, a flicker of joy breaks through the dread. Is it still within my budget? With the price reduction? Absolutely. Sandra pauses, then laughs lightly. And you'll love this. The locals call that ridge Independent Ridge. I can't help laughing with her. The name feels like fate itself is nudging me. I want to see it. This weekend, if possible. Consider it done, Sandra promises after we hang up. I stand at the window, gazing out over the city lights. For a moment I can almost see it. The A-frame cabin tucked among the pines, the mountains glowing at sunset. My place. My legacy. The doorbell jolts me from the vision. It's nearly 1 in the morning. Warily I peer through the peephole. Maggie stands in the hallway. Clutching a wine bottle, I open the door silently. She steps inside as though she owns the place, presenting the bottle like an offering. Matthews Reserve Cabernet 1989, she announces. From the year you were born. We've been saving it for a special occasion. The label gleams faintly in the kitchen light, the family crest embossed in gold. The wine is nearly black in the glass, dense and valuable. This is just the beginning of what you'll receive if you invest in the family, she continues, setting the bottle on my counter. A case of reserve wines every year. Your name on a plaque in the tasting room. Your children's future secured. The calculation of it all, bringing this bottle at 1 a.m, dangling it like bait, ignites something inside me. My future isn't for sale, I whisper. Her smile falters. Don't be dramatic, Claire. This is about legacy. No, it's about Daniel. It always has been. We've always supported both our children equally, she insists, the lie ringing hollow even as it leaves her lips. 3 decades of striving for scraps of recognition flash before me, the academic awards ignored, the promotions brushed aside, the endless loyalty demanded but never returned. I think you should leave, I say firmly, her eyes narrow. She reaches for the wine bottle, but I place my hand over hers. Leave the wine. I might need it when I sign the cabin papers. For once, Maggie has no reply. She slips out the door, her silence louder than any words. The next morning at Westbrook Design, the office hums with its usual rhythm. Printers spitting out drafts, the low murmur of conversations, the sharp click of heels on polished concrete floors. I stand at the coffee machine, staring blankly at the rising swirl of steam. When Kevin walks in without preamble, I blurt, "Can you help me draft an email?" He raises an eyebrow, mug in hand. "Threatening to quit already?" he teases. But the humor drains from his face when he sees my expression. Okay, not a joke. What's going on? We walk back to his office, and as the door closes, the words spill out of me. I tell him everything, from Daniel's Facebook announcement to Maggie showing up at my apartment in the middle of the night, wine bottle in hand. The sabotage at the bank, the pressure from relatives, the reunion that has been turned into a stage to shame me into compliance. Kevin doesn't interrupt. He listens, his eyes steady, his fingers resting lightly on the keyboard as if waiting for the right moment to act. When I finally stop, exhausted from the flood, he nods once. Family financial boundaries email, he says, already typing. We'll make it crystal clear. Professional. Direct. No room for guilt tripping. For the next hour, we work side by side, carefully shaping each sentence. The email makes no emotional appeals, no justifications. It simply outlines my position, that my finances are mine alone, that any further attempts to interfere with my mortgage or savings will be documented, and that continued pressure will result in legal boundaries being drawn. When we finish, I read the draft aloud. My voice doesn't shake once. This is perfect, I whisper. Relief loosens something in my chest that had been wound tight for weeks. That's what friends do, Kevin says simply, shutting his laptop with a soft click. That evening, I call Sandra and schedule the cabin viewing for Saturday afternoon, the exact time of the reunion at the Vineyard. My voice steadies as I say the words, as though aligning myself with fate. While still on the call, I open my laptop and hit send on the email Kevin and I drafted. It goes out to Richard, Maggie, Daniel, Aunt Linda, Uncle James, every family member who's been circling like vultures. The moment after I click send, a weight lifts from my shoulders. I feel taller, lighter, as though I finally cut the rope that kept me tethered to their expectations. My dining table. I spread out spreadsheets and reports. One document compares the financial returns of investing in my cabin versus the Vineyard. Appreciation rates, rental potential, tax advantages. The numbers are undeniable. My cabin is not only my dream but the smarter financial decision. As I highlight rows of data, my phone rings. The caller ID reads First Sierra Bank. Ms. Matthews, the voice on the other end says warmly, "This is Eliza Cooper. I understand you've been working with Mountainside Financial on your cabin purchase, but I wanted to introduce myself. We specialize in vacation properties near Yosemite, and I believe we can offer significantly better terms." I smile, pen tapping against the spreadsheet. It feels as if the universe itself is backing my choice, aligning everything toward the ridge, toward independence. Saturday arrives in a blur. I drive through the iron gates of Matthews Vineyard in the late afternoon, gravel crunching under my tires. Inside the tasting room, The family is already gathered around the massive oak table. The air is thick with expectation. Richard rises when he sees me. Claire, we were hoping you'd join us for breakfast before the family arrives later. His smile is too wide, too practiced. Maggie fusses with a tray of cheese and crackers, avoiding my gaze. Daniel stands by the window, arms folded across his chest, his Vineyard logo polo shirt crisp, his jaw set. I set my leather portfolio on the table but remain standing. I'm not hungry. We've been talking, Daniel says, pushing away from the window. And we have a special proposal for you. Maggie slides into the chair beside Richard, finally meeting my eyes. Richard clears his throat. Instead of 10% ownership for your investment, we're offering 15%. An exclusive family arrangement. He slides a folder across the table. I flip it open. The black and white words blur slightly as anger wells up. 15%. Daniel repeats smoothly, like a salesman rehearsing his pitch. That's a 50% increase in your stake. No one else in the family is getting these terms. Richard leans forward, fingers steepled. $100,000 for 15% ownership in a vineyard that's been in our family for 4 generations. Your great-grandfather would be proud to see you step up. Maggie's hand brushes my wrist, her voice low, cajoling. Family supporting family. That's what this is about. The subtext is heavy, unmistakable. Refusing means choosing money over family. I close the folder slowly, deliberately. My heart pounds, but my voice is steady when I finally speak. I've already invested my money. Silence falls. Maggie's fingers retreat from my wrist as though burned. What do you mean? Daniel demands, his face tightening. I unzip my portfolio and pull out a stack of photographs, laying them on the table one by one. The first shows a rustic A-frame cabin nestled among towering pines. The second, a panoramic vista of the Sierra Nevada mountains. The third, the deed with my name printed boldly across it. I bought property in Oakhurst last week, I say. 2 acres with a view of Yosemite. My investment. My legacy. Maggie's hand hovers over the photos, her lips parting in disbelief. You bought property without telling us? Just like you discussed my finances without telling me. I reply coolly. Richard's face darkens, fury twisting his features. This is incredibly selfish, Claire. Selfish. My voice sharpens, the years of buried resentment breaking free. Daniel has had every advantage, every opportunity, and he's still asking for more. The tasting room door swings open and relatives file in. Uncle James, Aunt Judith, Grandmother Ruth, others carrying potluck dishes. Perfect timing. Daniel forces a smile for them, then hisses under his breath. We're not done discussing this. Actually, I say loudly, turning toward the arriving family. We are. I retrieve my laptop, connect it to the tasting room's wall-mounted display, and pull up a spreadsheet. The screen flickers to life, numbers and charts filling the room. I've reviewed the vineyard's finances for the past decade. I announce. For 10 years, Matthew's Vineyard has operated at a profit margin of less than 2%. In 2019, the vineyard lost $35,000. In 2021, despite record tourism, the profit was only $12,000. Murmurs ripple through the crowd. Aunt Linda adjusts her necklace. Uncle James frowns. And this year's projections claim a 30% increase in yield with no explanation. I continue, sliding another report forward. The numbers don't add up. They never do. Daniel bursts out. You don't understand the business. You sit in an office drawing pictures while I work the land every day. But this time no one rushes to defend him. Uncle James clears his throat. Actually, I remember Claire trying to help with the vineyard when she was younger. She was told it wasn't her place. Aunt Linda nods. That's right. She even asked me about bookkeeping in high school. I let the silence stretch, the weight of truth pressing in. So tell me, I asked the room. Why should I invest in a business I was never allowed to be part of? A business that's been losing money for over a decade. Eyes turn toward Daniel. For the first time, doubt flickers in the room. The tasting room falls into uneasy silence. My spreadsheets glow brightly on the wall-mounted display, every chart and figure like a mirror exposing the truth no one wants to face. In 2019, I repeat firmly, Matthew's Vineyard lost $35,000. In 2021, despite record-breaking tourism in the valley, profits barely scraped $12,000. And now we're supposed to believe a sudden 30% increase in yield? Where's the explanation? Where's the accountability? Maggie's smile tightens, but she says nothing. Richard shifts in his chair, the wood groaning under his weight. Daniel slams his palm onto the table. Those numbers don't tell the whole story. You don't understand what it takes to keep this place alive. Legacy isn't measured in profit margins. It's measured in sacrifice. Sacrifice. The word twists like a knife. I inhale slowly. Sacrifice? Tell me, Daniel, what exactly have you sacrificed? Because from where I stand, it's always been everyone else cleaning up your messes. A ripple passes through the room. Uncle James leans forward, rubbing the bridge of his nose beneath his glasses. She has a point, son. We've heard promises before. The wine club. The online store. Each time you said it would turn things around. Daniel's jaw tightens. This is different. Different how? Aunt Linda's voice is uncharacteristically sharp. Her hands tremble slightly as she smooths the edge of her blouse. I gave $50,000 last year for fermentation equipment that never appeared. Daniel looks cornered, his eyes darting from one relative to another. For the first time, the support he always takes for granted seems to falter. Enough, Richard barks, his voice heavy with authority. Daniel has put his entire life into this vineyard. Without him, Matthew's vineyard wouldn't exist. I shake my head. Without a bailout again and again, it wouldn't exist. Tell them the truth. What truth? Daniel snaps. The foreclosure, I say quietly. The word lands like a hammer blow. The room freezes. Chairs creak as people shift, stunned. Foreclosure. Uncle James repeats, his face paling. You never mentioned that. My father's jaw clenches, but he doesn't speak. Daniel glares at me, fury radiating off him in waves. Finally, he explodes. Fine. Yes. The bank is threatening foreclosure if we don't show major improvements by next quarter. That's why this tasting room expansion is critical. With enough investment, we can prove to the bank that Matthew's Vineyard has growth potential. We can save the legacy. Maggie reaches for his arm as if steadying him, but the words are already out there. They can't be unsaid. Gasps ripple through the family. Aunt Linda stares down at her lap, her lips pressed thin. Uncle James shakes his head slowly, disbelief etched across his face. Even Grandmother Ruth, seated quietly at the far end, grips her cane with trembling fingers. I take a step closer to the table, lowering my voice but sharpening my tone. So tell me, how would my $100,000 fix that? If the vineyard is already drowning in debt, how can one person's savings make a difference? It won't. It's a band-aid on a sinking ship. The room buzzes with low murmurs. Cousins exchange uneasy glances. For the first time, I'm not the outsider in the conversation, Daniel is. This is exactly why the vineyard struggles, Daniel shouts suddenly, his voice cracking. Because no one in this family is willing to sacrifice for it. I'm the only one who has put everything I have into this place. My time, my energy, my life. And you all just stand there judging me. Sacrifice without results isn't noble, I say coldly. It's reckless. His face flushes deep red, his fists clenching. I almost expect him to lunge across the table. But then Aunt Linda speaks again, softly but firmly. Maybe it's time to consider professional vineyard management. Someone outside the family. Someone with actual business expertise. The suggestion hangs in the air like forbidden words. Richard looks as if she slapped him. We don't need outsiders meddling in Matthew's business, he growls. Do we not? Uncle James retorts, his voice rising for once. Because from where I stand, the insiders have been running it into the ground. The tension is palpable. Years of unspoken doubt and resentment swirl in the air like smoke. Maggie tries to reclaim control, her voice sweet but strained. This is about loyalty. About family. Claire, you of all people should understand that. Loyalty. I echo, my gaze sweeping across the faces of my relatives. Loyalty is earned. And all I've ever seen is favoritism, lies, and manipulation. You ask me to give up my dream cabin, my future, to bail out Daniel yet again. Tell me, how is that loyalty? That's exploitation. Silence descends heavier than before. Grandmother Ruth clears her throat softly, her voice frail but steady. Would you consider a smaller contribution, dear? Just enough to keep peace in the family. For a moment my heart aches. She's the only one whose approval has ever mattered to me. The lines on her face, the sincerity in her eyes, it nearly unravels me. A token contribution might buy me peace, keep me from being branded selfish forever. But then the thought flashes, if I give even $1, it will never end. There will always be another expansion, another bailout, another demand. Compromise would only prolong the cycle. Before I can answer, my phone buzzes. Elaine's name lights the screen. We had agreed on this, a lifeline, a way to escape if the pressure became unbearable. Excuse me, I say, stepping away. I need to take this. I press the phone to my ear. Elaine's crisp, professional tone cuts through the chaos behind me. Claire, sorry to interrupt, but we have an emergency with the Westridge project. The client is demanding immediate revisions before Monday's presentation. Relief floods me. I understand. I'll come in right away. When I return to the table, the room bristles with expectation. I'm sorry, I announce, slipping my phone into my bag. There's an emergency at work. I need to leave immediately. This is more important than your job, Richard insists. We need an answer today, Maggie adds sharply. Daniel slams his fist against the table, rattling glasses. This is exactly why we're failing. Because no one is willing to sacrifice anything for this family. His voice cracks, raw and desperate. We're drowning in debt, and you'd rather run away to your little cabin than fight for our name. I meet his glare head-on, my voice calm, even. Maybe that's because fighting for our name has never meant fighting for me. The words hang in the air, sharp and undeniable. I gather my papers and turn toward the door. Behind me, I hear murmurs of shock, the rustle of documents, the weight of realization settling over the family. For the first time, it isn't me who looks small in that room. It's them. Saturday morning dawns crisp and cool, the air carrying the faint scent of autumn leaves. I grip the steering wheel tighter as I drive through the gates of Matthew's Vineyard. Rows of vines stretch endlessly in neat green lines, but instead of pride, I feel only distance. As if the land belongs to someone else, a family I no longer recognize. Inside the tasting room, everyone is already gathered. The oak table gleams, polished for the occasion, stacked with neatly organized documents awaiting my signature. Richard stands when I enter, trying for a welcoming smile that never reaches his eyes. Maggie adjusts the cheese platter, avoiding my gaze. Daniel leans casually against the window, arms crossed, but I see the tension in the way his jaw flexes. Claire, Richard says, gesturing to the empty chair. We've prepared everything. Sit down. Let's finalize this before the reunion starts. I don't sit. Instead, I place my portfolio on the table and remain standing. I'm not here to invest in the vineyard. Murmurs ripple through the room, but I continue before anyone can interrupt. I pull out the deed to my cabin and lay it flat on the table, the bold letters of my name catching the light. I've already made my investment. In myself. Gasps break out. Maggie's face pales, Daniel straightens sharply. You can't be serious, he hisses. I am, I reply. 2 acres in Oakhurst, overlooking Yosemite. My money. My future. Voices rise in protest, but I hold up a hand and connect my laptop to the wall display. The screen flickers alive, filled with spreadsheets and graphs I spent nights compiling. For 10 years, I say clearly, my voice echoing in the vaulted tasting room, Matthew's Vineyard has been running on hope and handouts. Profit margins under 2%. Losses in multiple years. Unpurchased equipment despite promised funding. And now, projections that don't match reality. I click to the next slide, revealing side-by-side figures. According to the documents filed with the bank, overhead costs were reported at one level. But the numbers Daniel shared with potential investors tell a different story. Which one is the truth? All eyes swing to Daniel. His face reddens, his mouth opening and closing without sound. For once, he has no quick defense. Uncle James leans forward, voice low but firm. You misrepresented the business, didn't you? That's not, Daniel begins, but Aunt Linda cuts him off. How many times have we heard this time it's different? The wine club, the online store, now this tasting room. We're done funding your fantasies. The room erupts in murmurs. Relatives whisper among themselves, doubt spreading like wildfire. I glance toward grandmother Ruth. She sits quietly, her hands folded on her cane, her sharp eyes fixed on me. For a moment, I brace for disappointment. But then she nods, small and deliberate, a gesture that feels like the weight of years lifting from my shoulders. This isn't betrayal, I say, addressing the room. This is accountability. I won't sacrifice my future for someone else's mistakes. Richard's voice rises, thunderous. You've turned your back on your family. No, I answer softly but firmly. I've stopped letting my family turn their back on me. The silence that follows is absolute. Daniel glares, his fists clenched tight, but the tide has shifted. For once, no one rushes to his defense. I gather my papers, sliding the deed and spreadsheets back into my portfolio. I wish you all the best, I say, my voice calm. But I won't be a part of this any longer. As I walk toward the door, the air feels lighter, freer. The whispers behind me blur into nothing. I step outside into the golden afternoon, the vineyard stretching out before me. No longer a chain but just a field of grapes belonging to someone else's story. And my phone buzzes as I reach my car. A message from Daniel flashes across the screen. We need to talk privately. I have a new proposal. For a long moment I stare at it. Then I set the phone face down on the passenger seat and start the engine. Whatever Daniel has to say, it will be on my terms. Not his. As the vineyard recedes in the rearview mirror, a different picture fills my mind. The cabin at Independent Ridge, tall pines framing the sky, the mountains bathed in evening light. My cabin. My future. For the first time in my life, I'm not chasing approval, not bargaining for belonging. I am enough on my own. And that is the only legacy I need.